Hello learners, welcome to your Learn at Home program. My name is Haruna Manase Yerima, your Agric science teacher. Today, the topic we want to look at is effect of weeds and control. Effect of weeds and control. In our last lesson, we were able to discuss weeds. We say weeds are unwanted plants that grow where they are not wanted. That was the definition we gave for weeds. And we're able to look at the characteristic of weeds and some uses of weeds. Then today, we're going to look at the effect of these weeds and how to control weeds. Effect of weeds. There are effects of weeds. One, we say weed cause losses in crop yield, reduce crop yield. Yes, it's causing losses in crop yield. You discover that if you have a weed in your farm, the farm will not do well. The crops you have planted there, because of the competition between the crops and the weed, it deprives the crops from doing well. So you expect a small yield or low yield from that farm. Then two, reduce the quality and market value of crop products. Yes, the yield will not be enough, and the market value, for instance, maybe a farm of 1 acre, you may experience a large yield that will bring in income. But if weeds eat up the farm, there's no how the farm now will strive well, the crop will do well. Definitely, you are going to get low yield, and it will affect your income. And then the next point says, some weeds produce substances which are toxic to crops and animals. Yes, some weeds, they produce some toxic substances that are harmful to the crops and also to the animals that feed on them, thereby causing havoc to both the crop and the animals. The second point says poisonous weeds are dangerous to man and livestock. Yes, these poisonous weeds, they are dangerous to man and also to livestock. Once they feed on them, it causes problem in their system. Because last week, the other lessons we discussed that weeds serve as food to mankind. And if you take some poisonous ones, definitely it becomes a problem in your system. So also the livestock, they affect quality of animal product, e.g. hide and skin. Because there are some insects that hide in these weeds that we're talking about. Let's say the tick. In the case of animals, this tick, they gum on animals and feed on them, thereby destroying the skin of that animal and rendering it useless, that it will no longer be useful. So these weeds that we're talking about serve as an harboring place for these insects. Then the next one says they block waterways and irrigation canals. Yes, in our farm, most especially if you are trying to embark on dry season farming, we use what we call irrigation. And this irrigation, you make some canals or channels that will allow water to go into the farm so that it will wet the ground so that the plant now will thrive well. But once there are weeds in such farm, the weeds will be able to block the canals that will allow free flow of this water, thereby causing the reduction in the water that plants are supposed to get from the farm. And we said, it also blocks the waterways. In a farm, even if it is a rainy season, there are waterways that water normally follows through. If there are weeds which blocks these waterways, that will not enable the water to flow the way it's supposed to be. The next point says, they compete with crops for space, water, and nutrient. Yes, you see them in the farm there, they compete in terms of nutrient because they too they need nutrient, they need water, they need space to grow. Well, crops too need water, need nutrient, need space to grow, and from there you discover that there is competition between the crop you have planted and the weeds, thereby hindering the crops to get the nutrient they're supposed to get from that farm. The next one says, weeds form alternative hosts for pests and diseases, as I've earlier said. Yes, these pests and diseases can host in these weeds, thereby causing havoc to the crops. Then we're going to look, after saying that, we want to look at the methods involved in controlling weeds in our various farms. Have you ever been to farm? Have you ever seen how your parents cultivate crops? Have you ever seen how they try to control weeds in the farm so that it should not compete with the crops they have planted? Okay, if you have ever been to farm, you understand what I'm talking about. There are several methods that our parents use to control this weed that we're talking about. We have one mechanical stroke physical method. The mechanical stroke physical method is the method that you see them doing it physically with their own hands. One of it is weeding. You will see them with hoe. They will carry hoe and be removing the grasses in the farm or the weeds in the farm using hoes or cutlass to cut it, to slice it. That's another point. They say this involves the use of tools, implements, and machines. It includes hoeing, that's use of hoe, hand weeding, that's using your hand to pull off the grasses from the farm. You use your hand to pull them down. If you from the picture there, you see there is a man that is working in the farm or a woman that is working in the farm weeding with the hoe, removing the grasses. The other people, they are using their hands to pick up the grass, the weeds with their hands from the farm. Then we have slashing. Slashing is cutting the weeds with cutlass. You use cutlass to slash the grasses so that they will not grow to the extent that they will affect the plant. You can see from the picture there, a man is using a cutlass to clear the weed from his farm. Then the next one is rugging. Rugging means removing plants with undesirable characteristics. There are some plants, even though you planted them by yourself, but you discover that there are some undesirable characteristics that they are displaying. There is need for you to remove them so that they should not occupy space for nothing. That is why you see in the farm, there is what we call thinning. There are some plants that cannot do well. You have to thin them off so that they should not occupy space for nothing. So it's part of it. Then the last one there is tillage, that is plowing and harrowing. You discover that when we are plowing or we are harrowing, you discover that there are grasses or weeds in that farm. As we are harrowing, we cover the weeds, we call them green manure. Thereby, you are reducing the grasses too, you are reducing the weeds. So also, if the crops are grown up in a large farm like the tree crops, you can carry your tractor and begin to move around there to mash the grasses and destroy them. Thereby, they should not grow to affect the crop you have planted in such area. Then let's look at the second method of weed control. We have cultural method. We call it cultural method. If you hear the name cultural, it shows that it's something that has to do with you as an individual. Then this involves routine farm practices without the use of tools or implements. That's why we call it cultural. We cannot use tools, you cannot use implements. We use, in this case, we have what we call farm rotation. That is, you have a portion of land and divide it into 4 places. This year you plant here a different crop. The other plot you plant different crop. The other crop you plant different. The other plot you plant different crops. The other plot you plant different crops. And the law states that the shallow crops should not follow shallow crop. Then, if you are planting guinea corn here, don't plant maize close to the plot of a guinea corn. Rather, you either plant yam or cassava. Then the other plot you plant let's say cowpea or groundnut in that plot. The other plot too, you plant different variety of crops. Thereby, you discover that there will be no competition amidst the crops. This year you shift it. Another year you shift it to the other plots. That's how you'll be rotating. We call it crop rotation. You divide the land into 4 places and begin to do. As you can see, these plots have been divided into some plots. This one, you plant either of the crops that you want to plant, but you should not plant the same crop that will follow each other. Then we have another point, says mulching. Mulching. When we're talking of mulching, have you ever been to a yam farm? If you have ever been to a yam farm, you will notice that after the farmer has planted the yam, there is something he normally do. He will carry leaves, carry grasses or weeds to put on top of the yam and then cover it with sand. That thing that is doing, we call it mulching. We call it mulching. So you can see like this one now is a yam farm. You can see they put the mulch all around the farm, or the heaps, in order to prevent what we call evaporation, the escape of water from the soil to the atmosphere. So it's part of what? Controlling this erosion, weeds. We can use it to control weeds. Then we have bush burning, even though this bush burning is not allowed in agric practice, because it used to destroy some living organisms that are in the soil that helps in mixing the nutrient of this soil. So, but in olden days we say cultural, that's why we're putting it there, because some people use that method of controlling weeds. They can set fire to burn all the weeds in the farm. The next one is planting of cover crops. You know, if you plant a cover crops like groundnut, soya beans, or cowpea, all these ones serve as cover crop that can block the place so that they'll prevent, you know, the leaf spread. They say cover. They'll put the leaves now will cover the space of the farm in order to hinder the crops from germinating. They cannot come up, the wheat from germinating. They can block the wheat from coming up to compete with them. Then after that, we have close spacing. If you want to plant, in order to avoid having excessive wheat in that farm, you have to plant your crop close to each other. There should be close spacing. The space should not be much, so that as they are growing, the leaves now will cover the soil in such a way that it will not allow wheat to grow anyhow. And then the last one there is close season farming. Close season farming. Immediately as the rainy season is setting in, you plant another crops. That's how you'll be planting it. That is close season farming. You make sure that you time it so that you should not allow the grasses to begin to germinate before you say you want to plant there. It affects the crops. Then this is the second method. Let's look at the third method. The third method is biological method. When you hear they say bio, anything bio means life. That's to tell you that in this kind of a method, you use life or human being or animals to control the weeds. To control the weed. This involves the use of living organisms to disturb or suppress the growth of weeds, such as 1. The use of parasites and predators to control weeds. Yes, parasites or predators, those things that feed on the grasses. You allow them like grasshoppers, you can allow them to feed there, even though they have their own disadvantages, because as they're feeding on this weed, they can also feed on the crops we have cultivated there. But as such, we use them to control weeds in the farm. So also you can allow animals to go in and begin to disturb these weeds in order not to grow and affect the crops they are planted. The second one, killing weeds using their natural enemies. You still use their natural enemies to kill the weeds in the farm. Then the next one says feeding some parasite insects and animals on certain weeds. You can cut it, you know that we can remove the weeds and begin to feed our animals in the house with the weeds. So as you are doing it, you are reducing the weeds, you are controlling the weeds. Then the next point says suppression of weeds with creeping crops such as melon, sweet potatoes, etc. Yes, if you discover that these weeds are trying to cause confusion, what you need to do, you can plant like a cowpea in that farm. You know that they can spray, they can cripple on the ground to cover the space, so that they'll prevent the grasses from growing to catch up with the crops you have planted there. You can also plant watermelon. We know that they are all cripple crops. So if you plant them, they can suppress the growth of these weeds we're talking about. Then the next method, that is the fourth method, is chemical method. Chemical method. This is the most method that people are using nowadays. They can go to the market and buy chemicals to come and spray on the weeds and then to destroy the weeds. That is why they call it chemical method. It involves the use of herbicides. Herbicides are the chemicals used for controlling weeds. We know them. They are in the market. If you go to the market, you can get them. We have the atrazine, we have the Baquet, and the rest of them. Bushfire, they have different names. If you go to the market and tell them that you need chemicals, that you want to control weeds in your farm, those that are selling will be able to give you the one that you'll be able to control. Then, under this chemical we're talking about, we have the selective and non-selective chemicals. And then if you are using the one that can destroy everything in that farm, you can use non-selective herbicide. But once you have planted your crops, you can use selective herbicide. That's why the point 2 says selective herbicides kill weeds and do not kill thus they cause harm to the crops you have cultivated in that farm. This one, the example is 2,4-D. 2,4-D can only kill leaves, but anything like the cereals, if you apply it, it's not going to distract the cereals. It only kill leaves because it's a selective herbicide. And then atrazine. The atrazine is one of it. Then non-selected herbicide kill both the crops you have cultivated and one that you have not cultivated, and the weeds. Both of them will be destroyed. But in this case, that is why once you plant, we have the pre-emergence and post-emergence chemicals. In pre-emergence, you apply the chemical immediately after you have planted your crop and it has not germinated. That one we call it pre-emergence application of chemicals. And then post-emergence, it shows that the crops have germinated and then you apply those ones. That is where selective have come to play. So we said herbicide can also be pre-emergence, as I've earlier said, or post-emergence. I've explained these ones. You can see it there. Those ones that can, you apply, if you go to farm, you discover that as soon as they plant the crops, they will apply chemical immediately so that they will not allow you to grow. The chemical now will control the weed from germinating, but it will allow the crops to germinate. Thereby, after it has grown, we know that with time, the weeds will grow up in that land again. What you will do, you get the post-emergence herbicide that you apply. That one you apply with caution, because if care is not taken, it's going to destroy the crop itself. So you have to apply with caution, follow it line by line before you will apply it. If not, you are going to destroy even your crops. They also call residual or soil acting herbicide, e.g. atrazine, simazine, etc. And then herbicides that are absorbed into the plant and translocated to various parts are called systemic herbicide. The one that can absorb into the plant and then destroy it, we call it systematic herbicides. Systematic herbicide that the plant now will absorb it into this thing. That's why we have what we call, sometimes we have the one that the local farmer call it sharp. The one, if you apply today, before evening, you see the result. But there is that one, they call it 7 days. If they apply because it's following into the rooting, the stem of the plant, before it will destroy it, it takes 8 days. It will reach like 7 days before you begin to see the result of that. They are used in controlling perennial weeds. Yes, there are some perennial weeds. When we're talking about perennial weeds, they are the weeds that takes more than 5 or from 3 and above years. So we call them perennial weeds. So if you apply this kind of chemical, you'll be able to destroy such kind of weeds, etc., etc. The rest is there. Then the chemical method. You can see these are the example of the chemical method. People carrying knapsack on their back and applying. You can see this is this one is post-emergence, and this one is pre-emergence. Then, having done all this, we have come to the end of the lesson. But before I leave you, I have some assignment to give you. Mention 3 effects of weeds to crops. 3 effects of weeds. And then mention 3 control methods of weeds that you have learned. You can use your textbook, get the answer there, and then write them down so that you send them to appropriate channel. I remain your Haruna Manasseh Yerima as your Agric teacher. Thanks and remain blessed. Stay safe.